Comic Fam, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Comic Tom, and I'm sitting here with
Fire Guy Ryan. That's me.
Fire Guy Ryan. This is episode number 19. Wow, we've done 19 of these. It's amazing. It's a lot. And you know what else?
What else?
We're about to drop the biggest news we've ever dropped on our channel.
We have a huge surprise for you.
Giant size, like Dr. Manhattan in Vietnam size
Yes.
news right now. So every month we put an exclusive comic in our Mystery Mail Calls subscribers box. Everyone gets one. We've been doing it for a few months. And we recently have a partnership that has solidified. And starting January, I am pleased to announce that Marvel Comics has taken interest and they have joined forces so that we can provide a Comic Tom Marvel exclusive in the Mystery Mail Call. And we're kicking off January right. Open enrollment is now with Thor, Donny Cates, my first Marvel Comic Tom exclusive, courtesy of cover artist In Hyuk Lee.
It's a good one. Look at Iron Man. Look at him right there in all his glory.
Freaking two heroes on the cover.
Ah,
How did we make this happen? I don't even know. But you know what? The community is going to be the ones to benefit. Join the community by hitting the link in the bio. Freaking Donny Cates Thor, dude.
I'm so pumped for this Thor run.
Dude, I've been holding this in for so long. And I'm
Yes.
just so glad that I was able to let the community know right now. Let everyone know this is big news. This is some of the coolest stuff that's ever happened.
This is, and I'm never here for the cool big announcement news things. So I'm excited just to be in the room for this.
Well, I'm glad you're here today, Ryan. Hit the subscribe button, Comic Fan. We talk a lot about comic books, and we have a packed show for you today. We're talking about comic books that are going to save you some money in your household. We're also going to be talking about a gift that was sent to the comic book community. We were sent something really dope by a publisher. We're also talking about people who have been busted, specifically superheroes.
Also thought it'd be a cool idea to talk about some Thor stuff. We got a Thor exclusive coming out, so we're going to do like a little Thor, a little Cates, a little bit of a refresher course.
Let's start this show off right with a new category on Key Collector Comics, our sponsor of the show. This category had us busting a gut.
There's so many categories in this darn app, and like every time you open it, there's a new one. And we were just looking for categories a little while ago. I was thinking of something fun to say in the show, and boom, we found one, and it's just like, okay, we got to talk about that, I guess.
Well, there's a ton of categories because, dude, look at this freaking Overstreet. Look at how many comic books are in here. You got to figure out a way to be able to make this digestible, and Key Collector Comics does that. Use code TOM101 and get a free week subscription. And this category is glow-in-the-dark covers.
You think about it, and you're like, okay, yeah, I guess I could kind of remember some comics that had glow-in-the-dark covers on them, but I don't think about those.
Right? Do you think there's like collectors out there? Like we talked about foreign comics recently,
Yes.
and it was really cool to see all of these collectors come out of the woodwork, reach out to the show. They started DMing us and messaging us and tagging us on Instagram with their finds.
Shout out Matthew Roybal.
Heck yeah. Do you think there's other Matthew Royballs, but in the glow-in-the-dark community? Are we going to start getting like Facebook groups
There's
that
got
are
to be a
reaching
glow-in-the-dark
out?
community out there. Like,
Are you part of the glow-in-the-dark community, Comic Fam? Let us know if you collect glow-in-the-dark
Someone.
covers. But this one right here we got to chat about. We have Ghost Rider issue number 15. I've seen this so many times. I've owned so many copies. It came out in July 1991. But I didn't know that this was the first glow-in-the-dark cover to hit press.
I would almost feel like something like that has to be older. Like that's such old technology, you know?
It's pretty interesting.
The glow-in-the-dark technology on a Ghost Rider cover. That makes so much sense, too. Like,
I know,
that
right?
fits him as a character.
I know, I kind of lucked out with that one. Now, 2 months later, this may be considered the second appearance because I don't know of any in between. We may be wrong with this, but it's still cool nonetheless. We have Sandman Special, the no number. It says Orphans right on the cover. I believe that's actually the story. But this is Neil Gaiman goodness. It came out in 1991, and it's also a glow-in-the-dark cover. I've had so many copies of this.
I actually have a copy of the next one on here.
Yeah?
And it makes sense because if you think of things glowing in the dark and glowing green in the dark, you kind of think of Green Lantern, at least I do. Green Lantern 50. We were actually just talking about this not that long ago when with the spec for the new HBO show they're working on. This was the first appearance of Hal Jordan as Parallax. Cover glows in the dark.
It's also the first appearance of Kyle Rayner as the Green Lantern. And I didn't know this was a glow-in-the-dark cover. This is such a weird thing. I've seen this comic so many times. I know the book quite well. I've read it, but I didn't know it was a glow-in-the-dark book. I know it came out in 92, but you know what? The one thing I remember is that cover does feel weird. It's got weird texture.
That's kind of like your biggest indicator.
Right?
It makes me really miss the 90s when it felt like everything was glow in the dark.
Is that what the 90s feels like? Like
that bumpy glow in the dark, like Goosebumps kind of texture.
I'm thinking so. And you know what? If we're talking early 90s with like new variants and styles of comic books hitting the shelves, you know our homie over at Coffin Comics, Brian Polito, was about to be riding that wave. That's right. We're talking about Evil Ernie, Revenge, #1, a glow-in-the-dark comic book. This is a cool book, dude.
Evil Ernie is pretty cool. Do you know who else is pretty cool? Kelly Jones.
Dude, this next one's pretty dope. I didn't even know this was a thing. Batman, issue number 531. I know this cover. What I didn't know is that there is a reprinted cover, also done by Kelly Jones, but it was a special glow-in-the-dark cover. But what's also interesting is that this comic has a DC Universal logo on it. So that means that this likely was included in DC packs and sold at a very scarce market count.
You always got to be on the lookout for those DC Universe logos.
All right, jump into the next subject of the show. We're talking about people who got busted. And the reason why we're talking about people who were arrested was because the NYPD tweeted out something really funny.
Yeah, this is one of those things that makes you kind of think about what it must be like to be a law enforcement officer, somebody whose job it is to like protect people.
To protect and serve. And you know what? They run into some very uncomfortable, unique, and strange situations. And I think this is one of those cases.
When I think about a cop's daily life, I either think about very, very boring or very, very intense, like movie examples that probably aren't that realistic. But you get this weird kind of stuff that's definitely more in the middle. And it's unpredictable and very strange. And that's what I would call this one, this bust that we saw a photo of. There's kind of the usual things I think you would think of when you think of like...
Yeah, they took a picture of what they found after a bust took place and the things they confiscated from the
Right, there was like
person.
there was a gun, there was a little jar full of cannabis. Makes sense. You kind of expect those sort of things. He had a machete.
Yeah, okay, that's like, okay, he's got a machete there? Okay, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. Like,
You don't want to bust, I mean... Obviously, you don't want to see a gun, obviously. That's like scary. That's super scary, but you don't want to bust in and have someone like have a machete.
a machete is a little different. That's
You
not
don't
just
wanna-
a knife. You
You don't want to deal with a machete,
Yeah.
you know? But you also, what you don't want to deal with?
Wolverine.
That's right. You don't want to deal with Wolverine claws. And that is what is bringing us to this story here. NYPD tweeted this out, and it's got a picture of everything, including these like metal,
like a cosplay kind of thing or something. It's like you hold it. It's like brass knuckles or something. You hold in your hand and it's got claws
like
that
with
come
blades.
out of it.
And they're like, all right, first things first, we didn't arrest Wolverine.
Can you imagine? Like in my head, I'm thinking like a drug dealing, gun packing Wolverine who's also got a machete and his claws.
So I assume that this is someone who sold cannabis or something. Let's just
Sure.
We have no idea anything about this person.
We're
but
visualizing all of this in our heads.
can you imagine this marijuana dealer? But he's just always wearing these claws. And
Always?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's always like, all right, it's good to see you. And he's got these freaking
I
claws
figured
on.
he would bust him out, like, you know, if someone tried to pull a fast one on him or something, he'd be like, "No, back off, bub." He's got claws ready to go, and yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of funny. You know, Wolverine, obviously, it's just kind of silly.
It's comic related.
It is comic related, but this got us looking at other instances where individuals were kind of associating themselves with superheroes in a way, even if it's a little indirect.
Getting arrested and getting in trouble with the law. So that kind of sparked the idea, and we decided to look up various other superhero criminals.
Now, criminals may be a harsh word for some of these on this list, like the first one. We're talking about Phoenix Jones in our hometown, dude. Phoenix Jones made press back in like the early 2000s because he had been for, I think it was like a few years prior to that, slowly gaining a following because of his vigilante work on the Seattle streets.
He's a real life vigilante in Seattle. He's got the mask. He's got the body armor.
Mm-hmm. Dude, there was a point where there was the comic book store. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a comic store in Seattle that gave him a secret room behind comic books. He would go into the comic store to switch into his outfit.
Like a Batcave?
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, he had the whole thing going for him. And in 2011, he was actually part of a pepper spray incident that got him arrested. And he actually had to reveal his identity on the streets of Seattle on television. This is like a superhero moment.
I'm Phoenix Jones. I'm also Ben Foder. I also protect the city. I also am a father. I'm just like everyone else.
It's like a Spider-Man Civil War kind of situation. He took his mask off. He said who he was, and Yeah, he got in trouble he got in a fight with somebody, and to try and defuse the fight, he whipped out some pepper spray, and that is considered assault by the police, and that will get you arrested, even if you are a superhero.
Thank you, Phoenix Jones. Okay, now moving on to someone else who, Phoenix Jones, if you were in a scuffle, something happened in Seattle, and Phoenix Jones showed up, you're going to feel pretty safe, I'm betting. He's a good guy. I mean, he's looking for people's stolen cars, things like that. But some people who dress up as a superhero, it's more for nefarious reasons, just like this man in Mississippi.
I don't even know if this counts as nefarious. This story is so out there that it's like, I question this guy's like mental faculties.
Okay, we'll show you the picture here in a second, but let's explain
We're
what
gonna paint the scene here.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
This older gentleman, he's sleeping. He hears a ruckus outside in his backyard.
This guy's like a veteran or a Marine, some sort of military, and he hears something going on in his backyard at 3 a.m, and he's got his training. He's up. He's ready to go.
Oh, dude, he grabs his gun.
Yeah, he runs out to the backyard. And
what does he see?
He sees a man dressed in a Captain America costume with wings on. He's wearing fairy wings and a Captain America costume.
He's wearing fairy wings.
In a Captain America costume, trying to break into this guy's shed in his backyard.
At 3:00 in the morning.
3 in the morning.
What is he trying to get? Some shovels or something?
The cosmic cube has probably been there. You know?
He came back in time. He's looking for the cosmic cube and he found it. It's buried in your backyard. I got to get the shovel. But this gentleman has this kind of a sad picture. Steve Rogers sitting on a bench. And he's handcuffed and he's not looking happy. But you know what? He went with the Captain America outfit that has the extra muscle.
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
You need that to, bust down the shed door.
This next one is absolutely unbelievable. And we have some pictures to show.
I really wish there was video of this as well, because I really wish I could see how this went down.
Dude, they could make a movie
right
out of how crazy this is.
I imagine, I haven't seen it yet, but I imagine this is what Super was like with Rainn Wilson.
With Rainn Wilson?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Okay,
we have Mark Williams. This gentleman was arrested. So let's, again, paint the picture for the community. There was a crime that took place, okay? Enough to actually have blockers, like the plastic that they put around the area.
Yeah, the police had to cordon off a set zone because of a serious enough crime where they had to shut traffic down and keep people away.
It wasn't just so serious that they had to keep it away. They had to leave and come back. It was too much to do in one go.
Sure.
So they blocked it off, and then when the rest of the crew came, they found something that was jaw-dropping.
They found Batman.
They freaking found Batman in the crime scene. This gentleman, Mark Williams, dressed as Batman, and this is more like the Adam West style,
Yeah.
He is on site, walking around, and he walks up to the police officers, apparently doing the voice even, and he's letting them know that he's already scrubbed.
You have to say it in the right voice. You have to be in character here. I'm the cop.
Oh, you're the police officer.
I'll be the police officer. Excuse me, sir. This is a crime scene.
I'm sorry. I've already scrubbed it, officers.
Excuse me?
I scrubbed it. I've been all over the scene.
You've been all over our secure crime scene.
That's right. And never mind the fact that I'm in this Batman outfit. That's coincidental. But I've actually totally contaminated the entire area.
Yeah, he was already he didn't hear about this on the news and go out to find the crime scene. He was already on patrol or whatever as Batman that night.
He was walking the street, apparently found it, went into the scene, and he had actually got arrested and charged because the dogs that were there to find the scent and everything. I mean, this was a crime that took place. He threw it all off. He contaminated the scene as Batman. And his reasoning was it was coincidental. He was there to help. He happened to be in the Batman suit. Pits wet in all its glory.
I didn't need that image in my life, but there you go.
Very sweaty.
That's what it felt like in here in the summertime, by the way. Also, can you just imagine, being one of these police officers and you're already dealing with this intense crime scene that's probably very stressful, and then you get this guy who just shows up in a costume and he's sweating all over the place,
and he's acting like he is part of the team,
like he's helping you.
He's like, "Hey guys, you're welcome.
You take that part. Welcome. I got this section over here. By the way, I checked it. It's totally clear.
Yeah, you guys don't even have to go over there. You don't have to go over there.
There's nothing over there.
There's nothing over there.
Oh, thanks, Batman.
Oh my goodness.
No.
Okay, we got gifts.
We have gifts.
Gifts from Bill Sienkiewicz Art from freaking 6 Foot Publishing, the publishing house that handles his stuff. What is going on? Marvel announcement today.
Yeah.
Bill S is sending comic books to the show to be given away and sent in the mail call.
I don't belong here anymore. This is too big time for me right now.
What is happening? Well, first off, I just want to show some gifts from Bill S because it's going to go to the community. What better place to debut it? We have Immortal Hulk issue number 20, signed by the legend. We also have Detective Comics issue 1000, both covers with certs, signed by the legend. We have New Mutants, Chris Claremont, the recent issue, signed by Bill S. with Walking Dead variants as well, both signed by Bill S. Incredibly generous. Fans of the show, thank you, thank you, thank you. We also have a bunch of prints here that are going to be primed for giveaways going forward, and we're just going to start off this show with a giveaway right now. How about this New Mutant print, courtesy of Bill Sienkiewicz Art?
How does that happen?
Dude, I don't even know. But I've been a fan of Bill for so long. This guy is one of the most creative artists in the game.
There was a long stretch of time where you had every comic behind you back there. Where
Every single one.
Each one of them was from him, one of his covers.
From the PC, dude.
Wasn't this one up there for forever? The
Yep.
Andrea one?
Yeah, Andrea was out there for a long time. I
Not
thought
that
that was,
specific comic, of course, but that cover anyway.
no, but comment down below. Let us know what you think about the show. Let us know what you think about Bill S. Do you have a favorite Bill S. cover? I'll enter you to win this print, courtesy of 6 Foot Publishing and Bill Sienkiewicz Art. And I also got a freaking gift. This right here is Bill Sienkiewicz Revolution. This is
It says volume 1, by the way, so there might be more of these coming.
there may be, I hope there are, but it's a beautiful hardcover, 224 pages, 9.5 inches by 12 inches, and it's got a introduction by Neil Gaiman as well as an essay. Oh my goodness. The essay is done by Ben Davis. He's a historian, and the art.
I picked a few.
Yeah, right? Which ones are your favorite?
I picked the this Nosferatu painting that's in here. I'll have to show them off better.
Yeah, we'll get better
with
shots
an
of it.
actual photo of them.
Yeah, my favorite. Oh yeah, dude.
Michael Myers.
Halloween.
Gotta
of course.
show Halloween.
Halloween
God,
looking
so good.
gorgeous. My favorite's the Aubrey Plaza. I've never seen this, but tell me that is not. That's not like. Tell me that's not her. How does he do such
that is
a?
her essence.
How does he capture her essence in just like a quick little pencil sketch like that?
I don't know. I don't know how people do. I don't know how anybody can draw anything. But
Freaking man's incredible. Thank you for my signed copy. Available right now. This is actually brand new. Super excited to own that. And we're just so gracious. Thank you so much. It's an incredible thing.
yeah, this is mind blowing.
Mind blowing. Okay. Next part of the show that is mind blowing. Viewer comments.
Boosh.
Viewer comments. All right. So the community is so strong. They're leaving comments on our videos. We like to go through them. We like to read them, which we read all of them. And we also like to talk about them on the mic. So comment down below. We'd love to hear from you.
First comment is from Mark Spector Comics. Just save 10% of your weekly wages and don't touch it. Place it in an interest-bearing account and you'll get $1 million in 40 years.
There we go.
That's kind of the whole gist of that segment we did. That was about how to make $1 million illustrating comics. And long story short, it kind of boiled down to just be more responsible with your money and save better and don't spend on things you don't need.
That's right. It was a fun conversation because this production company who's adamantly trying to take young blood to the mass markets is trying to convince new entrepreneurs to draw comics for them at a low rate and explaining them how if they were just to divvy up their page rate and put that money in a savings account, well, after 40 years, you'll be a millionaire.
Yeah, that's all you need. Just 40 more years of life and some money.
Thanks for breaking that down for those who aren't artists. Appreciate the comment.
That was a fun segment, man. I love doing that one. Next comment is from Com's Collections. Comic Tom origin story of overachieving young gun Wolf of Wall Street-esque banker needs to be adapted by Boom Studios. Issue 4, first appearance of Fire Guy Ryan would be a spike in sales.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so first off, one thing that started to happen whenever Ryan's reading the comments, for sure, I don't look at the comments. I'm like, Ryan, you picked them because I want to be surprised. I
That's right.
may have missed that comment, and that's freaking hilarious. That must have been in reference to our bonus show that we released recently.
Exactly.
Because we started releasing the bonus show that is on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. The camera shut off, but the audio keeps going. The mics, we keep them on. We keep talking about comics and other things. And today's after show, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to say it right now, I think the best show, comic book
Absolutely.
show that's
Best-
come out this year.
Best television show, period. I'll say of all
Television show of all year.
All year. Watchmen.
That's right. Best show of the year. We're talking about it on the after show. We do an after show, a bonus show. After the camera shut off, we keep the mics going. We're going to be talking about that on SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. Hope that you join us there. But we recently dropped one of the bonus shows on YouTube. After a few months, we'll put them there. And we chatted about how we met at the bank. I hired you. And that's a freaking funny comment.
I'm very much looking forward to the Comic Tom origin story.
Boom. Hit us up.
Last but not least, comment number 3 from Tyler McDonald. Why does Ryan look like he could play Red Guardian in the new Black Widow movie?
Dude, you look like him, dude. David Arbor right here, dude. I like, for real, comic fam, let us know in the comment section below. Do you think Ryan should cosplay?
I've never cosplayed anything in my life. I
Dude.
feel like that would be the weird one to start with, but
You look like him, man.
watching that trailer, especially now with the beard. I think it's the beard.
And I love it, by the way.
The beard sealed the deal for me. Seeing him in that costume that just does not fit right, and the beard, and yeah, like that, it hits too close to home.
Let us know in the comment section below. Maybe we can get Ryan to cosplay as Red Guardian.
I'd rather do that than get a neck tattoo.
Maybe we can get a red, here it is,
That's
neck tattoo of Red Guardian.
David Harbour here, right
That's
on my
right.
neck.
All right.
That's right.
Okay, this next section of the show, it's long overdue. When did I tell you about this next section?
Like within the first 3 months of this channel, I'd say, like well over a year ago.
I've had this idea that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I decided,
We
you
did
know
it.
what?
We watched the whole thing. We sat down. We scripted something.
We recorded.
We recorded something.
We never released.
Didn't really feel right.
It didn't
Do
feel
we still
right.
have it? Is that still available somewhere?
I don't think so. It's back on an old computer, I think. But you know what?
Old news.
It's probably gone. We're going to end up re-recording it. We're going to be doing more of these sections. And really, we're going to be trying out some new stuff as we go into the new year. So we want to hear from the community what you think. But this next section of the show, it's about that feeling that you get when you're watching TV, or you're watching a YouTube channel, something that is not comic book centric. And then you have that moment and you go, whoa, that's a comic.
You know, it's like that feeling when you're a little kid, right? And you go and you're after school and you're walking home, you're walking to your best friend's house. You get to your best friend's house, you're hanging out, you're playing video games, you're reading comic books. Best friend's mom comes in, you're like, guys want a pizza? Yeah! That's what this is like. It's like, yeah, you had one cool thing, and then boom, comes in, it becomes even cooler.
That's right. When comic books are introduced to stuff, I get excited. I'm like, heck yeah. And I look around at the people with me and they don't care.
They don't care. They never care.
But you know who cares?
We care.
We care. And you know who else cares? I think.
I hope you care.
We hope that you care.
We're going to make you care.
All right, we're talking about comic books that broke through. We're talking about comic books in mainstream. And let's start off with one that I know a lot of people noticed this past year. We're talking about Stranger Things season number 3.
It's an easy one.
That's right. We have a character.
Yes. Her name is Max.
Max is holding up 2 comic books on screen for the world to see. And I got excited because both of these came out in 1985.
Nice touch. I mean, it's obviously this is what they should do. The show is set in 1985, so their comics, they should, if they're holding 2 comics up, they should be 1985 or earlier and not later like in some other shows.
That's right. And right now we have 2 comics to talk about. We have Green Lantern issue number 185 coming out in February that year. So that's some good continuity right there.
So that's probably like a book a couple months old from her collection.
But here's what's super, super funny. We have Wonder Woman issue number 326 that's in her other hand. This comic book actually came out in July 1985. And I looked up, Stranger Things season 3 actually takes place in summertime,
Yep.
in July. So that doesn't just mean that Max went and found a comic book that came out earlier that year. This means that either Max had a freaking pull list or went to a store that very month and got this comic book.
That's a fresh issue right there.
Fresh issue. Good job, Max, being up on your titles. Now, everyone saw those comics, but there have actually been other references in Stranger Things specifically to the comic book community.
In the very first episode of Stranger Things, there was a pretty cool reference to an extremely popular, important comic book.
That's right. And it kind of foreshadowed what was to come with the lead character, one of the leads.
So
but
it works on multiple levels. It's a cool key comic book. This kid knows his key comics, by the way, so that's important. You got to be up on your key comics. If only there was some sort of app you could download to keep you up and up to date and informed on key comic books.
I think he may have been a key collector
that Nick?
downloader.
That might have been Nick.
Maybe Nick. Oh my goodness. Did we just find a real first appearance of Nick? Was Nick actually in Stranger Things? Because this kid, I forget who it even was.
It was Will. It was Will and Dustin riding home on their bikes.
That's right. Will and Dustin. And they made a bet.
Whoever gets home first, you can have one of my comics.
I'll take your X-Men 134.
That's right. And the issue it referenced is I'll take your X-Men 134. Classic Chris Claremont. This beginning of the Dark Phoenix saga.
Which, if you've seen Stranger Things, you can kind of draw some very clear parallels between Phoenix and the character of 11.
That's correct. Okay, so let's move on from Stranger Things because comic books, they obviously Stranger Things is an awesome 80s show, but it's a kind of an easy one to dive into. I want to talk about kind of a comic appearance and something a little bit lesser known. A horror movie that came out in 2010 called Altitude.
Sounds awesome already.
It's a horror movie about kids on a plane. And there's like creatures in the sky, tentacle monsters. I'm talking like H.P. Lovecraft kind of stuff. And I'm not going to give anything away. I don't want to get into it. But what I want to talk about is a scene that stopped me in my tracks. I remember when I first saw this years ago, I posted it on Instagram.
I remember you showed me this scene last year when we were talking about this idea for comic books in other forms of media. You pulled this very clip up and showed it to me, and it was comical.
We have a bully that finds a comic book in the protagonist's backpack. He takes it out, and it is a rendition of an anthology horror comic book. They call it
Weird Stories.
Yeah, it's instead of like Weird Tales or Tales from the Crypt, but the idea is the same. It looks like a horror comic book, and this bully makes fun of the person who owns it. He's like, oh, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take it out of this plastic bag that it's in, and he makes fun of the plastic and the cardboard.
Careful, it's a comic book.
So I'll just give it back.
Oh my God, I'm taking it out of its protective case thing.
And then he goes on to do something just terrible.
Doesn't he rip it?
He starts crumbling the comic book.
Oh, hell no.
What are you, 7 years old reading comics?
That's right. And you know what's I find interesting is that it's like to the even average viewer, the fact that it looks like an anthology comic book is probably like, comes and goes. Like, who cares about that? But this idea that there's a value to comic books, even if there was no value indicated, the fact that they mentioned there's plastic on it, we got to keep it safe. And then he starts crumbling it in front of the owner. I think that speaks to something that just in culture we've adapted. There's this value to comic books across the board that's recognized.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to tell if this dork is dorky enough to carry a comic book with him and keep it in plastic.
That's right.
He must be a big loser dork who's concerned about keeping his dorky comics intact.
But it gets even better because who was the director of this movie?
It's Carr Andrews.
That's right. This guy's a freaking comic book artist.
Yes, I own several variant covers that he's done. I didn't even know he'd made a horror movie on a plane before.
That's right. And this artist, well known, put this movie together and it went straight to digital. At home release. A lot of people didn't watch it.
I never heard of it.
That's right. It's cool stuff though.
But tentacles, airplanes, I'm on.
And a comic book creator who directed the movie. And I like to think that some of these scenes came from a comic book collector.
Speaking of airplanes, Tom, and comic books being involved in certain things, there was one television show that had that had a comic book in it that had an airplane in it also.
Son of a bitch.
Lost.
We're talking about Lost
Talking
again?
about Lost, because there's definitely a comic book in that show.
How is it that we keep talking about Lost on this show? I don't know. This show ended such a long time ago. What is happening? Okay, so we're talking about comic books as they enter into mainstream life.
Lost is the most mainstream show of all.
Dude, that show was popping when it came out. And man, I just, like, it was shaking my reality when I was watching it.
At least back in that first season when most people were on board and it had yet to really get too weird and too, time travel-y. And
there's a point you realize you're just not going to answer anything.
Yes, and that's when the vast majority of people checked out. But in the early era of Lost, there was a young boy named Walt who was reading a comic book on the beach. It was a comic book called Green Lantern Flash Fast Friends.
Whoa! That's a comic.
Exactly. Hence the name of this segment.
That's right. And we have Green Lantern and the Flash, Faster Friends Part 1, but it gets even better because this is a comic that's actually showcased in the book quite heavily in this episode. There's a polar bear panel in there that's referenced.
You know what's even more interesting? To tie this all together even more, there's a foreign comic.
That's right. In the show, this comic is not an American comic. This is a Spanish version. It's part of the plot. But holy smokes, we're talking about foreign comics right now.
Boom.
Full circle.
Lost is always relevant.
Always relevant. Okay. You know what else is super relevant? There's a ComicTom exclusive coming in January. Thor 1.
Just
Donny
mention
Cates.
that one again?
Dude.
Hasn't...
I don't think... is anyone going to blame me? It's a freaking Thor 1 in Hyuk Lee. Come on. But we're talking about Donny Cates. We're talking about Thor, and we're excited. And I figured this would be a great time, a great opportunity to kind of give some Thor recommendations. There's been some great Thor writers of the past. Some people are going to be getting into Thor right now. I guarantee you there are people putting Thor on their pull list because it says Cates right on the cover.
That's a big draw for me anyway.
So let's chat about some Thor comics, and then let's chat about some Donny Cates comics. So first off, let's take a look at some comics we think people would be into as it pertains to Thor, and a good place to start if you find yourself needing some more of the Thunder God.
The easiest recommendation to give is the Jason Aaron run of Thor. It's relatively recent, and it appears to be something that Donny Cates is basing. He's actually pulled a lot of his...
Already?
Yes, a lot of his material that he's written throughout Venom and Silver Surfer and the rest of his Marvel work. A lot of it was seeded in the early issues of Jason Aaron's Thor run. That's
something Donny Cates really did well. Sometimes writers, when they come in to take on a new story, a new idea, they kind of retcon stuff. They try to make it their own, make it work. But in this case, he was all about showcasing his comic knowledge. He was referencing everything.
Yeah, instead of kind of just... You could say Jonathan Hickman, for example, when he came on to X-Men, he kind of just wiped the pieces all off the table and was like, this is my world now.
Gold balls.
Right.
Boom.
But Donny Cates...
We're going to call it gold balding.
Sure.
Why don't we do that?
Let's call it gold balling.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below.
Donny Cates comes in to the world of Marvel, not even just Thor, but he comes into Marvel and he's kind of like tiptoeing and sneaking his way in without disrupting...
Take that over there.
Without disrupting the world that was already built for him by other writers. Like he's just weaseling his way into that mold without breaking anything, without clearing the table. He's fitting into the world that's already been established by writers like Brian Michael Bendis and writers like Jason Aaron.
So Jason Aaron's run is fantastic. He had a huge Jane Foster run in there that is so damn good.
Legendary.
And then the God Butcher. This whole run, it's long, but it is following Thor being more of a god than he has been in the past. This is a character that if you pray, he's going to hear your prayers.
And pray to Thor all the time.
We do.
You
say
do.
That all the time.
I don't pray to Thor.
No, I always say pray to Thor,
Exactly.
But it's because he hears you, and it's about this run, about getting to know Thor in that way.
I love that run because it's got 3 different versions of Thor all in the same storyline. You have like a prologue prequel version of Thor, like he's still a young kid, he doesn't have the hammer yet.
Right.
He's got a big axe and he's just kind of, rowdy and rough and headstrong.
Different parts of his life have to be covered in order to get to the climax where he has to face off against the God Butcher.
It's a really cool run.
But
that's the easiest recommendation for Thor.
Now, one thing that got me really into comics as far as like reading, again, it really sparked that fire hard, was Civil War.
Ooh.
And this is right around the time that Thor was killed. Specifically, because of Civil War. They didn't want him to have to side on one or the other. What side are you going to put the god on? So they just took him out of the equation and gave us this wasn't it like a clone or a robot Thor in Civil War?
Some kind of thing that Tony Stark made.
Yeah. I digress. Doesn't matter.
It's all comic books.
But when they brought Thor back.
Yes. After Civil War, Thor had a relaunch. He had a new Thor series by J. Michael Straczynski and Oliver Coipel.
That's right.
I never know how to pronounce it.
You love that run, dude.
I do. I don't even like Thor, really. I don't consider myself a fan of Thor, but I like that run. I read that run mostly because I'm really interested in that era of Marvel Comics, the Civil War era, the mid to late 2000s. This Thor run is interesting because it deals with the kind of rebirth of Thor and the rebirth of Asgard, the rebirth of all of the Asgardians who everyone died in Ragnarok.
Remind me, where was Asgard in this story run?
This story involves Asgard being rebuilt, I guess, reconstructed floating just above a small town in Oklahoma.
Right.
In Midgard. Asgard is in Midgard, and The whole run is about Thor kind of reawakening. He's kind of got a little bit of amnesia. He has to find the rest of the Asgardians and kind of reawaken their memories. And it's all just a really cool build-up for what happens later on in Siege, for example, in the Dark Avengers and Norman Osborn and all of that. He kind of lays siege to Asgard, and it's a whole big thing.
Now,
Cool era.
really great era. Great era comics, and a lot of those runs are fantastic. So now let's take a look at one of the classic runs, one that really cemented Thor as a cosmic Avenger, someone who is going into space, traveling dimensions. We have Walt Simonson's classic run, and he did it for, 5 years?
Yeah, he was the writer and the artist for a while, and then he stopped drawing, but he kept writing for, I think, another year after he stopped drawing.
So there you go. There's some stories that you can dive into and enjoy. But let's chat about the writer of this new comic book that's coming out.
I don't think we've mentioned him before.
Nah, Sir Cates hasn't been a writer that we've talked
This writer
about.
at Marvel called Donny Cates, who writes various comic books, and he's pretty cool.
Yeah. So there's a handful of comics that I want to discuss right now. The first being one of my favorites that introduced me to him as a writer, which was Thanos Wins.
Yeah.
What a crazy, awesome comic this was. And this was a comic that I thought for those who are down to try out comic books and want to read a superhero comic, this is a great one to just be like, you know what? Here you go. Takes place in the future, and just read it.
You don't have to know too much about like all the crazy convoluted present day stuff that's going on, as long as you have a general idea of like who Thanos is as a character, which shouldn't be hard for people now that, Endgame is a thing.
Everyone knows who Thanos is.
Exactly.
So this is a dystopian future where Thanos wins, and not just like wins, like he really wins.
Yeah.
He takes everybody out. He's got Hulk on a leash in his basement.
That's badass.
It is so badass. I mean, Cosmic Ghost Rider gets introduced. We have I'm not even going to get into it. If you haven't read it yet, read it. You're going to love it. It's a great intro to anything Donny Cates has written. But let's say that that's a little bit too mainstream and you want to go a little bit more independent. Well, he did some of that too.
I think a very good intro to Donny Cates, especially because it's so short and just straight to the point. It's punchy. Is God Country.
Dude, it's a short series.
It is. You can read it in like one afternoon.
Yeah, one sitting, and they have it on trade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty unique. It follows Emmett, who has some mental difficulties. He's suffering from...
Is it actually Alzheimer's, or is it just memory loss? He's got something like that.
Yeah, it's a combination of that. And he finds, because of like a tornado, a sword, a 12-foot long sword that when he touches it, his memory comes back and he's back to normal, and life's seeming to be good. It heals him to a degree because he's been chosen to wield the sword.
But then, like, it turns out that it wasn't a normal tornado. It was some kind of otherworldly tornado, obviously, because it brought some magical sword to our planet. But then it turns out the demon creature thing who owns the sword comes looking for it. And, a conflict is set up that way between Emmett and the rightful owner of this sword. And it's a nice, short, self-contained, no sequels, no other wider universe stuff to be concerned with. It's a really good story. And I think it was part of the reason that Donny Cates was put on the map in the first place.
Yeah, it was definitely one that when people read it, they were like, oh my goodness, this guy's got some chops.
This is a writer to keep an eye on.
That's right. And then, of course, wouldn't it be fit to mention Thor and to mention Jason Aaron and all these different things without mentioning Venom.
You got to read Venom.
Yeah, it's so good. And then
it's the obvious answer, and it feels like a cop-out to include this in a list of 3 Donny Cates titles to read, but you got to read Venom.
Dude, we went through Baby Tooth. We were looking at other stuff he did. We didn't talk about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Redneck.
But really, Redneck is so dope, dude. But you know what? When it comes down to it, get yourself the first trade of Venom. You're going to be happy. And get yourself caught up, because all of these storylines are starting to weave together. And I'm just so stoked,
you could say Venom is kind of like the through line of all of his Marvel work that he's done so far. In like Silver Surfer and in Guardians, all the build-up he's done for Null and Absolute Carnage and all the symbiote stuff, it's all kind of the backbone of that all is the Venom run that he's done. And again, also, like we were talking before, it's a run that you don't necessarily need to be super familiar with the wider, just before happenings in Spider-Man and in Venom right before that. It's pretty new reader friendly.
He took like the seeds of plot points from other runs and it just expanded on it here. And then he did it with major characters. So these stories that are now canon, they're spreading throughout all these other runs and changing the Marvel Universe.
It's pretty cool. He took an offhanded character that was barely in the beginning of Jason Aaron's Thor run and made that guy his overarching super Thanos level villain for his entire... It seems like he's building up his entire time at Marvel to be kind of a null story.
Hey, it's his character, man.
Yep, I'm loving it.
But something really dope is that Donny Cates put his time in the comic book industry. He was an intern at Marvel before any of this. And his first published work actually happened here in Ant-Man and the Wasp, issue number 2. Can you describe what happens on the first page of this comic book?
Yeah, they let Donny Cates do like the summary, the recap of what happened in the first issue of this miniseries.
In his style.
It's very Donny Cates.
Yeah.
It's very like, I don't want to say aggressive because that's not the right word.
To the point.
That kind of like bad boy attitude that he has, that like skater kid Donny Cates feel that I get from him. It's very on display here.
People ask why I call him Sir Cates. It's because I refused from day one to call him the bad boy of comics. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but that's what Bleeding Cool puts all over the place. Donny Cates, the bad boy of comics. I hate that.
Yeah,
no,
it's
he is Sir Cates. We've knighted him. He's earned
we
it. Honor him in the comic book community. This guy's freaking awesome. And if you want to win his first published work, we got 2 giveaways now. So comment down below. Let us know what you think about the show. What do you think about Donny Cates? Are you excited about Thor? Hit the link in the bio, join the Mystery Mail call, and get your Inhyukuli Comic Tom exclusive. I'm so stoked about it. And let's move on to another subject of the show that I freaking absolutely love, and that's dollar bin diving.
What are we looking at today? What sort of dollar bins are we diving in?
Okay, so I wanted to just take you down this Betty section. You know, like Betty and Veronica?
Oh, right.
There was a comic run in 2001 called Betty. Now, there is a term that I like to think we helped coin the phrase. I think Nick brought the term to the community, but I think our show brought these comics to the forefront. And I'm talking about good girl covers that are modern. Now being known as neo good girl covers. And this section on the app is Dollar Bin Divings, is showcasing comics that are worth more money, but are largely lost in the scuffle of comic book collecting and hidden in long boxes and unknown, thus pretty affordable on the hunt.
That makes sense.
Right? So this list right here, we have a bunch of Betty comic books that people may not know. And I'm just going to show you an example of some of the books that if you find on the hunt, you're going to be screaming that you're happy because they're worth money and they're largely missed. I'm talking about Betty issue number 8. This is a cover by Dan DeCarlo. This issue is showing a swimming Betty on the cover. She's got her bikini on. She's got her goggles on. But because of the swimsuit, this is now it's now known as a Neo Good Girl cover. High value sales of this comic book, although you can find them for $1. $40. Right now. $40 for this book right now. Crazy stuff.
For that?
Oh, it gets better. I'm going to show one other on this
That's
list.
a book, for example, that is a book I would skip right past as I'm looking for something that I came to the dollar bin for.
No one's looking for Betty.
I would never think to grab something like that.
Okay, let's go up to 2010, okay? These are under 10 years old. These are out there. We have a Dan Parent cover. Betty is on the beach. She's playing with the beach ball, okay? Betty issue 186. Highs, $65, okay? It's published in August 2010. Like, it's just a lower print run. Not a lot of people bought this book, but because of this new collector genre, the neo good girl genre, we have collectors who are after high grade copies, and it's spiking them in the market. And if you're not up on your Key Collector app checking the dollar bin diving section, you're just not going to be up on what's hot and what's being missed in the dollar bins that you yourself are already looking in.
Now I'm just thinking about every time I've flipped through a dollar bin and like the 5 or 6 comics I've picked out that I went there for.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're thinking about the whole box that you're skipping through and
This is what I'm
like
talking about
blazing
right
right past you.
Code Tom101.
Just want to give up already.
Free week subscription. Join the best collector app in the world. This community here are finding comic books on the daily using this app. I'm getting tagged on Instagram. I post it to my story all the time. Tag me at ComicTom101. People are finding success, and if we can help you find it, use the code, get a free week subscription. I guarantee you're going to find one book that's going to pay for the subscription in its entirety. All right, let's move on to another, what is this? A new segment?
A new segment.
News Nuggets.
News nuggets.
How would you describe news nuggets, Ryan?
Nuggets of news.
Nuggets of news.
News
Okay,
nuggets.
so these are like the news that we feel like we just got to bring to the community's attention, but it's because it sparked interest to us. Like we're sitting here and we're going through all these different things and we're like, maybe not show worthy.
There's been so many topics over the past 19 podcasts that we've done when we're looking for ideas to talk about. So many things that are like, that's a cool subject, but it's so quick and it's kind of short and there's not really enough there to make a whole, several minute long segment of our podcast about.
But we still want to talk about it.
We still want to talk about it. So why don't we just take several of those and smash them into nugget form?
That's right. So we got news nuggets for you. And the first one we want to talk about is James Gunn's Suicide Squad #2. News has been breaking about this all year, but this news has got me so excited. James Gunn went to Twitter and announced that this movie that he is producing right now, we know he's a fan of practical effects, but he's saying that this movie, Suicide Squad 2, is going to have the most practical effects that he's done in any movie ever.
That makes sense because he's got that background in horror movies. And people who make horror movies, especially independent horror movies like him, they kind of have no choice but to use practical effects. So it makes a lot of sense that he'd be using that here.
Do you think that he probably has a love for practical effects for that very reason?
Yeah, it's easier.
That's right.
Well,
And
not necessarily now.
I mean,
Sometimes it's easier to just throw a bunch of money at it and make a special effect.
it really depends on it, but
Yeah.
there is probably a passion he has for the makeup and for the actual prosthetics and the different creations that you can do through practical effects.
Prosthetics and practical effects always age better than CGI too. No matter how good your CGI is, in 5 or 10 years, it's going to look a little silly, a little flat. People will notice.
Yeah, and if you think we're wrong, go check out The Thing and then get back to us.
Right, that movie's aged fantastically well, but if you look at any movie full of CGI from like the year 2010, not so much.
I'm all about this, man. I think Suicide Squad 2 is going to be a great movie. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, and I think it's needed after just the failure of the first one.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
All right, let's take a look at this next story here. WandaVision. I am all sorts of interested in this, and I wasn't really at first, but the way that they're releasing the information, slow burn, it's got me intrigued.
I've been catching some flack in the community for not being a fan of The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
which is the first live-action Star Wars series, but it's the first live-action series of any kind that is coming out on Disney+.
True.
It's got me a little worried about the Marvel shows. However, the more I hear about WandaVision in particular, the more at ease I am. I want a show made by Disney Plus to be strange, to be risk-takey, to be a little more out there. And I think WandaVision is going to scratch that itch for me.
Can't agree with you more there, Ryan. I want to see something different. There's going to be a lot hitting the screen, and it's going to be fighting for viewers' attention. We need something different. If we get something that's the same, it's going to fail. It's not going to be good. But this is news from Variety that has got so many people freaking out. It says here, this is the quote, that parts of the show could be filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is going to be a classic sitcom blended with huge Marvel action. What is this?
How can this possibly be a thing?
Like
what? In what?
Laugh
in what-
tracks?
Yeah, studio audience. Like I Love Lucy.
How?
Like in what world does this? It has to be her having some kind of like hallucinations or some trippy dream sequence.
Yeah, maybe it's like a thing that they do sometimes on the show. So they're just going to film those scenes in front of a large studio audience. But
That
typically,
sounds weird, and that's the exact kind of weird that I want.
but it's also the kind of thing that would incent a production company. Typically, when you do something in front of a live studio audience, you're saving time because you're filming things faster. You get the laugh track, and yeah, it ends up helping in post. But I'm not sure if this is more for a creative decision, so we just get some interesting narratives, or if they're actually going to give us a sitcom-like show, which is what they're soliciting.
I'm reminded of there was a bunch of freaky dream sequences in Requiem for a Dream where she's visualizing herself on stage in like a talk show kind of environment with a live studio audience there, and it was a scary dream sequence, and I'm thinking something like that might be
Could be.
what we're looking at. Hopefully not like the rest of Requiem for a Dream, but you get my feeling.
All right, the next one on this list here that has just perked my interest is Werewolf by Night. I've been following this character for quite some time. We had news early last year that Hulu was going to be taking on a number of different shows as that year winded out. It looked like it was going to be a lot of darker shows.
Ghost Rider was really big for Hulu, so they were kind of building up a separate like dark street level counterpoint to the Netflix street level universe that was developing and has now failed.
And now that we are seeing all of these shows transfer from Hulu now to Marvel Plus, looks like that's not happening anymore. Werewolf by Night has kind of been lost in that scuffle until recently, because now we're seeing rumors hit the internet that Werewolf by Night is going to be in Moon Knight, which makes so much sense.
That's where they got introduced. It's kind of like John Constantine and Swamp Thing hanging out all the time.
I'm excited to see this angry Ginger, and I'm even more excited to see him side by side with Moon Knight. It makes a lot more sense with that Blade cast than the Midnight Suns, which is what I think they were planning on going as far as the direction on Hulu.
I just think if you throw a werewolf in the mix, and like, what is that going to do to your show? That could make it so scary. If they do it right, they could really make this Moon Knight show. Like, I'm really looking forward to the Moon Knight show too. And I have he's been one of those characters that I've been kind of like, And I've never really dabbled in Moon Knight, so I'm looking forward to this a lot.
All right, Matt Reeves, Batman. What is this guy doing? We have so many different villains that are now coming to the forefront, being casted. We got Riddler, we got Penguin, we got Catwoman, we got Commissioner Gordon, all these different supposed characters that we can expect to see in one movie. And it sounds like we have rumors about why that's happening.
I don't know how I feel about this. I've been on record as being kind of like nervous.
Ryan's confused. You're feeling some turmoil. You're fighting inside. The devil and God are raging inside of you.
Always. I remember when they were talking about Long Halloween being an influence for this movie, and I was kind of nervous that had too big of a scope, that there was too much in that storyline. There's too many villains. You kind of tick through every single rogues gallery of villain that Batman has. And I'm kind of worried that if you put that many villains into a movie, you'll get the Spider-Man 3 effect, where the whole movie just kind of unravels and fizzles out.
Why does it look like?
But they're doing this because they're leaving the door open now that Joker was such a big success. I think they're leaving the door open from this Batman movie to kind of be a springboard launching point for solo villain films. So like if the Riddler, for example, does really well, Paul Dano, who I love, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing his Riddler. If he does well, there's potential here for a Riddler spinoff.
Origin or something.
Yeah.
Similar to the Joker. They're trying to figure out a way to replicate it. It makes sense to me.
If you're going to make a mini cinematic universe around the Batman characters, I think you could do a lot worse. You know, there's Batman characters have all kinds of, you have unlimited potential there, basically. For a mini cinematic universe.
Next one on the list here, we got Zack Snyder. We haven't actually talked about this much, which is, I don't know. It's been on the list a couple times as a maybe we talk about on the podcast, but then, I don't know, I kind of felt like it really wasn't worth it. But then, damn, this guy is not letting up.
Zack Snyder's not letting up. I've noticed Jason Momoa has been saying a lot of stuff about the Snyder Cut recently. It seems to kind of never go away, and the movie's been out for like 2 years now.
That's right. Every other day, it seems like there's just more and more individuals being riled up saying that they want to see what Zack Snyder intended for us to see years ago.
I'm usually always on that side because every superhero movie comes out, you always hear behind this after the fact. You always hear behind the scenes there was a big conflict between the studio and the director, and it usually ends with the studio forcing the directors to kind of change some stuff or put some stuff out, or just generally water it down to make it more palatable for the masses.
I.e. Suicide Squad?
Sure, yeah, Suicide Squad is a big victim of that. I also personally think Green Lantern is a little bit of a big victim of that, and we're having that happen here. And I usually always side with the creator in this instance. And I think in a movie like Justice League, it could only be improved by a director's cut.
It could only be improved.
Low
bar.
They cut a lot of that, a lot of the good potential out of that film. It's a I don't even know. It was a mess. It's a shell of what it could have been.
Well, a lot of individuals voiced their opinion saying that they demanded to see it. They want to see it, right? But will Warner Brothers do this kind of thing?
It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years. It's a lose-lose situation.
They got a new Batman already.
Let's say they put it out and it does well.
That would be scary for them. Like, what if it does well, then people are like, well, hey, this was pretty cool. Let's get more of this.
Yeah, you screwed up. Or if it doesn't do well,
we want Ben Affleck back. That's
they're already looking at the future. It's like it's done is done. It didn't work out. However, one of the points, kind of to go against the let's bring it out mentality there is that what could they have actually done? Like, all right, we have a 2-hour long movie, and let's say there's 15 minutes. Okay, let's say there's 15 minutes of extra footage, 20 minutes of extra footage. Heck, give it a freaking half hour of extra footage. How much more dialogue? Maybe another character, Maybe there's like a storyboard that they can show us.
At that point, you're basically just inserting deleted scenes back into the movie, and usually deleted scenes are cut for a reason, and those need to be removed for general flow and stuff. And yeah, you put all those back in the movie, you usually end up with something like 15, 20 minutes of kind of and it feels like bloated.
Bloated, and it's like no big deal, right? And that's what I felt like a lot of people thought that were like, oh, they don't care about it. That's what they were thinking. It's not very much. And if it is anything, it's like not very good. It's unfinished. Probably not worth it. Forget about it. Move on. However, we're talking about news nuggets for a reason.
News nuggets.
Zack Snyder tweeted out that not only does the Snyder Cut exist, he showed a freaking picture of it. And what does it say on the front?
3 hours.
3 hours plus running time. There's over an hour's worth of movie. Not 20 minutes, not 25 minutes, not 60 minutes. We're talking like there's like a whole half of a movie that we didn't see.
What do you think is in there?
So now I'm like, damn it, no, am I switching sides here? Do I want to see this movie? I don't even know. Comic Fam, let me know what you think. Does this change your mind if you didn't care? Or if you do care, are you just up in arms now? You're freaking out and you demand to see it? Because I'm starting to think that there could have been something in there that could have saved it.
I watched Justice League, and the whole time I kept feeling like this was moving too fast. Like personally, I wanted to see more of like the Cyborg story. I felt like he suffered the most, like as far as cuts to the plot go. Like they just kind of got rid of his whole story and even involvement in the plot altogether.
It's similar to what you described about your concerns about the upcoming Matt Reeves Batman. There's so many characters, so many heroes, more than one antagonist, and all of a sudden they kind of get watered down. You don't feel like you got enough of anything, and you kind of feel like, you know what? Kind of a letdown. Bummer.
Yeah, so maybe an extra hour of the Justice League movie could have been
hour plus.
Yeah.
Over 3 hours.
Exactly.
I looked online, man, for Justice League was just over 2 hours.
Yeah, and it wasn't good. A lot of it was all over the place.
What do you think, Comic Fam? Let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget, we have 2 different giveaways that we're doing today. We have the first Donny Cates published work, and we also have this incredible gift from Bill S. and team.
With more to come. We got a whole stack of these prints that we're going to be giving away.
I'm going to be posting a bunch of this on Instagram for everyone to see. So if you want to see some of these prints of what's coming, go say hi over there.
ComicTom101. Follow that guy.
Yeah, go follow Ryan as well. Fire Guy Ryan over on Instagram. We do appreciate your time today. Go download Key Collector Comics. Use that code TOM101. Get the best comic book app that exists on the market. And last but not least, we got to just remind you that we have...
Tom's excited.
Dude, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Dude, I don't think anyone's going to blame me for fanboying about my own freaking Thor comic book. Donny Cates is on the cover. You flip it around and my name's on the back. I'm freaking out. Get your ComicTom exclusive for January reserved. I have a feeling they're going to sell quick. Low print, baby. It's going to be crazy.
Exciting.
It's exciting, man.
I want one.
Oh, you're going to get one.
Is that how that works? Do I get one?
Of course you're going to get one, man. I ordered extra for you, brother.
Just for me.
For the team. This is a big deal, man.
Right?
Thor. Inhyuk Lee. Woo! Comic Fam, 2020 is going to be an awesome year. We appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. Join us as we continue this conversation over on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.
We're not done.
Oh, we're just getting started, dude. We're about to talk about Watchmen. That's probably going to go for like the whole damn half hour.
I love it. I'll do it.
As always, Comic Fam.
Geek responsibly.
Enough said. Yo, Nick Pryor, congratulations. You won the giveaway from last week's video, an issue of Spider-Verse 1, the 1 in 25 Patrick Brown variant. And Comic Fam, if you click over here, you can watch last week's podcast. And if you click over here, you got another video that you can check out. I recommend it.